Hello everyone, and it's a beautiful Thursday morning, and I'd like to talk about Roe v. Wade. Um, Commentators are saying that it's very likely it's going to be overturned, so I want to finally discuss the why Roe v. Wade should be overturned, A, and B, it's not a big deal at all. Actually, I want to discuss, well, okay, let's do A first. Why should it be overturned? So a lot of people think that, oh, it's pretty normative that a woman has a right to an abortion. No, it's not. This norm did not exist at all prior to the 70s when Roe v. Wade was decided by the Supreme Court. And it was not a natural decision at all. It didn't make a lot of sense, right? The Constitution doesn't give a woman a right to abortion that would override state statutes, right? So it doesn't preempt the state from making any laws with respect to abortion. So it was not a natural conclusion. Now, because it is the status quo, we think, oh, it's supposed to stay, and we seem like, especially the liberals, but even the mainstream media, they believe that it's somehow radical for it to be overturned, but it isn't. I think that in the future, 100 years from now, looking back at our era, we would say, hey, it's actually pretty amazing that Roe v. Wade lasted this long, because that didn't make any sense, right? So they're going to say, well, yeah, the court made a knucklehead decision at some point, and it lasted for 30 years. I mean, that's basically what the history book is going to tell us. In other words, the norm is for Roe v. Wade not to be there. In other words, for the states to decide. Which brings me to number two. So the second thing I wanted to say is that it's not going to affect women by much, and here's why. A lot of people, most people, especially liberals, when it comes to Roe v. Wade, they don't get it. They don't understand that if you overturn Roe v. Wade, you don't take away the right to an abortion from a woman. Okay, Roe v. Wade enshrined that right in the Constitution. It's not there. It doesn't mean, just because it's not in the Constitution, doesn't mean you don't have it. Okay, if you think about it, and if you know legal theory, anything not in the Constitution is automatically a right. Like the Western society is premised on foundations, on principles of liberty. So by default, you have liberty. In fact, the Declaration of Independence is driven by the concept of liberty, by the concept that George III, or whichever number he was oppressing the colonists. And so everything is driven by this idea in Western jurisprudence, is that by default, you are at liberty to do whatever you want. And so if the state says nothing, right, then you're allowed to do it. If the state specifically allows it, again, you're allowed to have abortion. The only way you're not allowed to have abortion is if your state makes a very strict abortion law that precludes you from having an abortion. Which brings me to why overturning Roe v. Wade is not going to have a big effect on women who want an abortion. So here's several reasons. Number one, most liberal women, no, I should scrap that. Let's say it again. Okay, let's start all over. Okay, most pregnancies are brought to term, are taken to term, meaning the women want to remain pregnant and they want to give birth to a baby. Okay, and in fact they do. Okay, so we're talking here 90% plus, 95. I don't know the exact statistic, but a large majority, most of them, the overwhelming majority of them is no issues at all. The ones who do want an abortion, keep in mind that most abortions in general, again, we're talking here a small percentage of the overall number of pregnancies, but the women who do seek an abortion, most of them seek an abortion within the first, let's say, 2 months. Now, note that even the staunchest and most conservative states regarding abortion, banning abortion, they still allow it within 2 months. Okay, there's no state that I'm aware of that doesn't allow an abortion within a month before a heartbeat is detected in a fetus. So everyone allows it. So again, this is moot. This is not debatable. If you're afraid that you're not going to have access to abortion within 2 months, that has nothing to do with Roe v. Wade. No state bans it. No state will ever ban it. Okay? So that's number one. Number two, most women who are inclined to seek an abortion live in liberal states. And liberal states, of course, are known to extend the period when abortion is permitted. I mean, I don't know the exact, breakdown of which states allow abortion how long, but I do know that there's very few states who allow abortion up to the moment of birth. I mean, so at some point, it's going to become illegal. So it's more, the question really is, can you do an abortion, let's say, in the second trimester, right? So with liberal states, yes, you can. With conservative states, no, you can't. So like I said, most women who do seek an abortion in the second trimester, they're liberal women. Again, we're talking a very small number because, like I said earlier, you should have sought an abortion in the first trimester, which is what most people do regardless of whether you're conservative or liberal. Okay? If you know you don't want this fetus, then get rid of it sooner rather than later. Just for practical reasons. And moral reasons, but even for practical reasons, this would be prudent to do. But, okay, so assuming that you didn't, for whatever reason, you didn't get rid of the fetus and you're in the second trimester, statistically, you probably live in a liberal state. Why? Because conservatives don't do abortions. They're discouraged from doing abortions, both morally and on religious grounds as well. And also because conservatives, this is a separate issue, but conservatives in general, they're not as inclined to use the latest medical technology, etc. And so for various reasons, conservatives, meaning people who live in conservative states, are statistically less inclined to use abortion, whereas liberals are. Also, liberals subscribe to the notion that women need a career and children are not that desirable. That's part of the progressive ethos that, procreation is not that big a deal for them. Having children is not a thing. And career is more of a thing, and especially egalitarianism, meaning that women should pursue the same type of career as men and the same type of lifestyle as men. And so if men don't give birth, women don't give birth. So this is generally a liberal thing. And so if you live in a liberal state, again, you have no issue here. The only way you have a problem with overturning Roe v. Wade is if you live in if you are a liberal, or you are, or for some reason you are a conservative and you're seeking an abortion, and you live in a conservative state that has banned abortion in the second trimester, and you have delayed it until the second trimester, and now you suddenly want an abortion, and you live in Alabama, Mississippi, wherever, and you just can't get one. Which brings me to point 3, which is, even in this scenario, again, this is a very, very minute, minuscule number of cases, but even in this case, you still can practice abortion tourism. You can go to a neighboring state. Nobody's preventing you from doing that. Nobody is talking here that Alabama is saying, okay, if you are a resident of Alabama, you are not permitted to leave the state to perform an abortion. Nobody's saying that, right? You can't do it. Alabama is saying that you can't have a clinic practicing abortion within our borders, but you're allowed to travel. You can just take a flight or travel across the border to another state and do whatever you want. So again, what's the ruckus here? Why is this a catastrophe? Yes, I know it's inconvenient, but we do it all the time. Like with marijuana, we've been doing this for decades, I think. When did Colorado legalize marijuana? A long time ago, right? And people have been traveling to Colorado. I mean, it's pretty understandable that, sometimes you need to circumvent the rule and you go around and you go to a state that allows it. I mean, corporations have been organizing in Delaware. That I know is for decades, right? So this is a very routine thing in American political and legal life, is that we pick the state that permits us to do the things that we want to do. So it's not that big a deal. And lastly, point number 4 is that everyone understands that you have the concept of democracy, and if the majority of the people within your state, again, democracy is first and foremost a state matter, right? You vote in your state, you vote for a state legislature and a state governor, and they have primary sovereignty over its citizens. And so people in general understand that in a democracy, the majority decides. And so why, with abortion, why is abortion different? I mean, this idea that somehow this is something that the majority can't decide here. This is so oppressive, so incredibly oppressive, that it must be enshrined in some type of a constitutional guarantee of protection for the minorities against the whims and the oppressive tendencies of the majority. I mean, why? Why is this different? I mean, if you're gonna go this route, then you can do this with everything. Oh, this is so oppressive that you're making this law. It needs to be constitutionally protected. And then why? Why? This is just a typical state. I mean, this is a typical law. Either you can do it or you cannot do it, and the majority decides. And again, going back to point 3, if you're not happy with the majority, you can either move permanently out of your state. You can either become politically active to try to persuade people to overturn the law or to change the law, or you can just practice abortion tourism, go to a different state. Okay? So, bottom line is that it's a purely cultural battle. The left has become very obstinate about it because they want to make a cultural statement that this is okay, and this is something we want to promote, and this is something that I stand for. And you score some brownie points, and you do some virtue signaling by pursuing this matter, by being active on social media and by stating your opinion. Hey, I'm for women's rights, I'm for abortion, blah, blah, blah. But it's silly. It's really a silly matter when it comes to Roe v. Wade. Now, if you're active on a state level, I respect you a lot more. So if you're saying, hey, I want my state to permit it or to ban it, I mean, obviously, the people who are seeking to ban it, I mean, they're having the upper hand right now because a lot of states are doing it right now. But if you're a liberal and you're saying, okay, I want my state to permit it, then I respect you. Not a problem at all. And in fact, personally, by the way, I was going to say I'm pro-abortion, but I'm not pro-abortion, but I'm against banning abortion, okay? So in other words, personally, I find the practice rather repulsive. It's taking a human life, and you shouldn't be doing this lightly. That's all I can say. But nevertheless, I'm very uncomfortable. I'm a libertarian, and I'm extremely uncomfortable when the state gets involved to override a personal decision. And I don't see the imperative for it. I mean, if you are a religious conservative or for whatever reason you find the practice abhorrent, then don't do it yourself. You don't have to impose your beliefs and your values on other people. And don't come to me with that retort of, oh, what about murder? Like, should the state stand by when somebody commits murder? No, it's not the same. And you know it, and everyone understands that. If a parent can do it, and if there's a lot of parents and a large segments of society that thinks it's okay, then you know that it's not the same as murder. You know that these people have different values than you. And so even on a state level, I do not support it. I do not think the majority should pursue this, should make a law about this. And I would not support it even though I personally would be disinclined to do it, and I would balk at the practice. Nevertheless, I would not support my state having strict anti-abortion laws. So like I said, that's another thing that liberals should understand. There's libertarians. Libertarians are generally conservative, but libertarians are on their side when it comes to abortion. So Roe v. Wade is not a big deal at all. So if you're liberal and watching this, I hope that I've calmed you down and you are ready to accept mentally the restoration of the Constitution with respect to abortion to its proper interpretation. because Roe v. Wade is just wrong. It's not wrong, it's wrong on many different levels. What I'm talking about wrong is that it's just not the correct interpretation of the Constitution. You can't read something into the Constitution just because you want it. You just can't do that. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.